Every individual is born with a unique identity, a set of characteristics that make us us, that shape our lives and differentiate us from the remaining 8 billion. When I was leaving on my one-year exchange, age 16, about to try a completely new life, thousands of miles away from home, I already had an identity. It was shaped by years of my parents' colorful upbringing, by my community, school, friends, and many others that in some way had an impact on my life. So leaving, I felt like it would be necessary to take some of my most sentimental belongings, so that finding myself in a new place, I would still keep track of who I was. And so, I packed my favorite Polish candy, a Polish book, an album full of pictures, and plenty fancy dresses. I thought that these would keep me safe from what was my biggest fear of all, from forgetting home and forgetting myself. And so, I ended up giving all the candy to my newly made friends. My Polish book remained unread. I quickly swapped my pretty dresses for a pair of comfortable sweatpants and a school jersey. And I also learned that homesickness cannot be healed by simply staring at a picture. On my way back, however, I had a much bigger problem with packing. I wanted to take everything that could somehow make me feel like my exchange year never ended. And so I ended up spending a ton of money to send everything I had collected home. Among these was my favorite sweatshirt, a skiing jacket I was forced to buy to survive the Minnesotan weather, a jersey I got when I made it on the volleyball team, a Campbell biology, because even though it was way too heavy to even consider taking it with, I somehow felt like if I didn't, the whole knowledge I've gathered would have vanished. I felt something similar with numerous boxes of Pop-Tarts that have been my main breakfast option for the entire year and that I thought I would miss incredibly. I've never had them once since I came back. Perhaps my body refused to take in another sugar overdose in the morning. I also couldn't show up home without a pair of my pink neon Crocs that have served me the entire year and witnessed all of my greatest adventures, and despite being quite atrocious, became my favorite pair of shoes. Now I only wear them to walk my dog around the backyard. And what took me ages to realize is that none of these things could compare to the true gift I was carrying home, one that I wasn't even aware of. My belongings reflected the change that I have undergone, but they were unable to define me. Coming home, I found myself in a strange position where neither of the suitcases could describe my new identity. The identity I was not born with, but that was shaped by my decisions. I was no longer limited by any boundaries to exploring myself. So, my most difficult journey wasn't due to distance or time. It was the process of self-exploration, of gaining the awareness of my own identity. A self is greatly shaped by the society that surrounds it, by the community, culture, school, and many other interactions. Major experiences in our lives have an immense influence on who we become and how we view ourselves in the society. It would seem that in this whole process of creating us, we ourselves are excluded, that we are given a role of a passive observer that to some point thinks independently, yet remains enclosed by the boundaries of his surroundings. If I had been asked that a couple years ago, I would have strongly disagreed with such a statement. I would have said that no matter the culture or the society we were raised in, only we have the true power to shape our identity. Sadly, I've grown to realize that most of us unconsciously accept the role of an observer. That, however engaged, warm, and accepting people we are, if we never step out of the comfort of our own culture, we will not be able to gain an objective perspective on our life. And so, leaving, I was determined to make the best out of every single day. I was in fact driven by inconveniences that for the first time in my life of a perfectionist weren't obstacles, but challenges that only brought excitement in my life. I have always been afraid of speed, but Minnesota happened to be the state of roller coasters and skiing. I was a foreigner with just about decent level of language, yet I found myself taking up college creative writing and public speaking classes alongside the natives. I have never played volleyball before, but somehow I made it on the team. And to be honest, compared to my American friends who had played the sport their entire lives, I was not good at all. But for the first time in my life, being the best had absolutely no meaning. Gaining experiences was motivated by the awareness of the flying time. Towards the end of my exchange, I was no longer sure of the exact shape of my identity. In fact, I was quite certain that I no longer had just one identity, but two separate ones, based on the two lives I have led. The feeling of a double identity isn't something unique to my experience. Travelers, speakers of multiple languages, international students worldwide, they all seem to have developed a sense of a new identity, an alternative version of themselves. However, the only problem about the concept of a double identity is that it doesn't exist. The fact that we start a new life across the ocean does not mean we get to be someone completely different. However, being thrown into a new culture has such an impact on our mentality that it truly does give the brain a great reason to develop a sense of a new identity. When stripped of our daily routine, a straight and easy to follow line, with those same pathways we used to take every day, and with those same people we used to see, our cognitive map gets altered, or even destroyed. A brain without its shortcuts is forced to open itself to new challenges and seek opportunities. And trust me, this process does not follow a straight line. And this would seem to be a great disadvantage, but only when the brain is given the right time and space to be truly befuddled, just like that, does it open to new possibilities. It gets a while for the brain to get accustomed to the new reality, to memorize the faces, the new path to school, the new set of vocabulary. But once it does and a new cognitive map is created, it gets much easier to get involved with a new community and soon start feeling like a part of it. At the beginning of my exchange here, I was known as a girl from Poland who spoke with a funny accent and got overly excited every time someone would show her a new fast food place. But towards the end of the year, even though I never became a true American, I was no longer a stranger. I was known as a girl who was good at painting, who played volleyball, who had many common friends, and who lived in the neighborhood, just down the Lincoln Road. And what was once strange became my ordinary. A new culture revealed its flaws and beauty, and influenced me to an extent that I sometimes wonder whether it wasn't my own. But still, it didn't have the power to make me forget who I truly was. Only it helped me realize that being myself had a true meaning, and what being myself really, really meant. I understood that alone we do not stand a chance in shaping our own identity, but it doesn't make us any less capable of creating. Only even the best artist needs the right tools. During an exchange student reunion I have attended a few months after my return to Poland, we were shown a graph that is perhaps the best representation of my exchange experience. And because it is very scientific and complicated, I am now going to need your absolute attention. Here it is, the Society of Squares. A bunch of people that believe in similar values. They may also disagree, but they still like to eat similar food and spend time in a similar way, and generally act within the boundaries of their own culture. On the other side, we have the Society of Circles. They also believe, eat, think, argue, and spend time, but in a completely different way. The two societies vary greatly because they think and act within the boundaries of their own cultures. But here things get a little bit more exciting. A square decides to join the circles. The unknown customs of the circles soon become a part of the square. And here you may think that the square simply becomes a circle. But correct me if I'm wrong. A perfect square with its flawlessly shaped edges is far from ever reaching an equally perfect shape of a circle. However, the culture, the language, the people, the experiences of the square, they all have such an immense influence that the square simply cannot stay within the boundaries of its perfection. We, the human beings, are mostly shaped by genes, a set of characteristics that we receive at birth. But along with that comes centuries of cultural heritage, a package of shared knowledge that is absolutely beautiful, however tends to limit our perception of others, of the world, and most importantly, of ourselves. So today, I invite you to join me on my journey. I have started at the moment I went on an airplane and headed towards the unknown. But needless to say, I haven't ended with my return. I invite you to step out of the comfort of your environment, to challenge the perfect edges of your square. Don't ever try to be the perfect square, and don't ever wish to be a perfect circle. Today, I invite you to join me on my most difficult journey, on my journey of becoming a triangle. Thank you.